Studying from master artwork can be scary and intimidating. I mean, where do you even begin? The problem is, we want to learn everything at once. We want to learn the composition, the color, the textures, the edges, the characters, the lighting, and it just gets too overwhelming. This is why I want to show you the importance in narrowing down your focus to only one thing at a time. In this case, color. We are going to break down this incredibly complex painting only looking at the color choices. And we won't just be copying the color that we see, we won't gain much knowledge from that. We are going to be answering an overarching question of why that color. If we understand why the artist uses a specific color, we can use the same kind of thinking in our own artwork. We're going to analyze the color choices in this painting and make a study out of it. And I promise, you won't be drawing a single thing. You may not come out with an absolutely gorgeous study to post on social media, but I guarantee that you will learn a whole lot about color. Hi, my name is Shami and I've been making digital art for the past 4 years. And I absolutely love color and light design in visual storytelling. Welcome to my channel and let's dive in. Before we get into the study, I want to strongly suggest you watch my previous video on studying color from master artwork. This video builds upon concepts of color and light explained in that one. So I'll give you a bit to watch that one if you haven't and come back. Okay, welcome back and let's start. In the previous video, we focused on the principles of color and light using this portrait by Nathan Fox, where our theme was how light affects color. Specifically, we looked at color of object, color in light, and color in shadow. We could easily do that kind of in-depth analysis since we were only dealing with a single subject. But as the number of objects increase in a scene, it can be difficult to analyze the light and shadow for every single one, especially when you only want to do a quick study. So instead of analyzing light and shadow, we're going to analyze change instead. Specifically, how the color changes from one area to another. Now, what makes color change? Color changes for a variety of reasons. One that we explored in depth in the previous video was light. We have a flat local color like this, but if we shine some light on it, we now get all of these colors. Another reason is local color, or color of the object itself. For example, in this sphere study, if we were to look at it like a flat surface and remove the illusion of 3D, the color here is different from the color here. Why? The answer is pretty obvious. I have a blue ball beside an orange ball, so when I painted this, I had to change my color from this bright orange to this blue. Next is change in atmosphere. If I were to take the same colored ball in the same light, but push it way back into the horizon on some mountains, then the color changes again. The ball hasn't changed color, it's still an orange ball, and even though it's far away, light is still hitting it. So the color change is not due to local color or light. Now, it is because of atmosphere. The more the distance increases, the more air particles and clouds and dust increase between us and the object. All of those particles interfere with our vision. Generally, the object becomes lighter and more blue, as there is now more influence from blue skylight. Then we have change in materials. For example, a ball that resembled skin would interact with light differently than how it would if it were sandstone, than how it would if it were lava, than how it would if it were wood, even though the local colors are all in the oranges, and the lighting is the same between all four. In today's study, we will focus on the first three: change due to light, change due to local color, and change due to atmosphere. Now we need to ask ourselves, how can we show these changes in color? Color has three properties: value, hue, and saturation. Let's start with value. Value is how light or dark a color is. Any color can go from really light to really dark. Hue is the name of the color, such as red or blue. And saturation is how intense a color is. It can go from really intense and saturated to much less intense and desaturated. But to make our lives easier, hue and saturation can be combined into one property: temperature. Let me explain. Here we have the hues. We can split the hues into warm and cool. So here on the warm end, we have yellows, oranges, and reds. And on the cool end, we have greens, blues, and purples. This is color temperature, thinking in warms and cools. Now remember, we are focusing on the change in color from one area to another. So we are concerned with color movement. If we were to take a color here from the yellows and then place this color from the oranges beside it, how can we describe the color change from here to here? Of course, we can say the color has gotten more orange, which is using the hue to describe the change. Or we can describe the temperature by saying it's gotten warmer because we are heading deeper into the warm end of the color strip. Let's try again. What if we take the same yellow and shift it this way? I moved the warm yellow all the way into the cools to get this cool green, so I made it cooler. It is the direction that matters for color temperature. Now for saturation, movement this way is increasing saturation and this way is decreasing saturation. If I take this red color and make it more saturated, I'm increasing the reds in it and making it warmer. On the other hand, if I make it less saturated, I'm decreasing the reds and making it cooler by comparison. Or if I had a blue and I increase the saturation, I increase the blues and make it cooler. And if I decrease the saturation, I decrease the blues and make it warmer by comparison. And now, pop quiz. On my color picker here, I have saturation increasing in this direction and decreasing in this direction. And here I have the hue strip in the form of a wheel, with my warms on this side and the cools on this side. And for future reference, value increases going up and decreases going down. So color gets lighter this way and darker this way. Now if I take this color, which is a cool blue, and I decrease the saturation and I move it this way to get this final color, is the new color warmer or cooler? Yep, it's warmer. Now, if we have this desaturated orange and we shift it this way into the greens and then increase the saturation to get the final color, would you say the color is warmer or cooler? Definitely cooler. So I hope that proves to you that movement in both hue and saturation can be summarized using temperature. Now we can use only value and temperature when figuring out how color changes. When doing our Ghibli study, we will be thinking about why the color is changing. If it's because of light, because of local color, or atmosphere. And we will be showing those color changes through change in value and change in color temperature. For example, if I zoom into the painting here and look at this golden flower in the foreground, it gives me this bright warm yellow. Now if you look at this color right next to it, it is a darker and more saturated orange. So if we place the color on our color picker, it lands about here. Now how do we get to this color? Well, we know the color has gotten darker, so we decrease the value and slide down this way. The color has also gotten warmer by having more oranges this way and by increasing the saturation. And we get our final color here. Now why has this color change happened? Well, this part of the flower is in light and this part is in shadow. So it's due to a change in light. So using that kind of thinking, we're going to study this master artwork by showing the different color relationships using value and temperature. And always ask ourselves, why is the color changing? In order for us to focus only on the movement of color and nothing else like drawing or perspective or edges, we need to give ourselves some limitations first. We're going to eliminate all of the other art fundamentals by actually making it impossible for us to paint them even if we wanted to. To do that, we will need a specific kind of brush. You can make this in any digital program you have. Choose any basic brush with hard edges like this. Change the angle or ratio of it so that the shape becomes flat. Turn off the size settings so that the size stays constant no matter how much pressure you put on the tablet. and make sure it has no texture. We want our brush to make marks like this. This makes it impossible for us to focus on anything but color because it's literally the only thing we are allowed to change. With marks like this, all we can do is make blocks of color, which now allows us to get on with study method number 2, where we simplify this insanely complicated Studio Ghibli scene into color swatches. For a color swatch study, we are concerned with overall color changes and specific color changes. For example, an overall color change takes place over a large area. If we look at the upper half of the image, which is the background, it is overall low in value and cool in temperature. Now, if we look at the lower half of the image, which is the midground and foreground, it is overall high in value and warm in temperature. So we have an overall increase in value and increase in warmth from top to bottom. Now, why is this change happening? Well, it is mainly because of a change in lighting and atmosphere. There is more warm yellow sunlight hitting the midground and foreground, making it high in value and warm in color. By comparison, the background looks lower in value and cooler in color since no sunlight is hitting it. But the background is getting even cooler because blue skylight from above is hitting it and moving it towards the blues. And in the more distant parts in the background, like here and here, it gets lighter in value and even cooler when compared to the more closer parts of the background. This is because of atmosphere. There can be atmosphere like mist or fog in this kind of dense forest, and makes the forest feel vast and deep. This is an overall color change from one large area to another large area. Now for a specific color change, let's zoom in here to this foreground flower. Look at how the color changes from the outer edge of the petal to the inner edge. This is a change in local color. The color of the petal itself is changing. Now, how can we show the change? If I compare both colors in terms of value and temperature, it looks like this color is increasing in value and decreasing in saturation. Less saturated in this case means less pinks, so it's getting cooler. This is a more specific color change since it's on a much smaller scale. So we will approach this color study looking first at overall color changes and answer the big color questions, and then we hone in on more specific color changes. Let's begin. I'm blocking in large areas of color thinking of overall color changes. You literally can't draw out shapes or worry about details with a brush like this. So just focus on making large swatches of color. Also, if you want to see a recording of my whole screen with my color picker and hear my thoughts as I do the study, you can learn how to access the tutorial for free in the description below. Or not, you don't have to. I'm not sad about it. We can just move on. Now back to the study. No matter how complicated any artwork is, you can always break it down into simple color swatches. Start with a bigger brush and slowly decrease the size as you make smaller and smaller color changes. The more time you spend on the study, the more detailed it becomes, and the more subtle color changes you begin to notice. For every color I put down, I'm comparing it to the color beside it, asking myself, is it lighter or darker? And is it warmer or cooler? And if it is warmer or cooler, is it due to a change in hue or a change in saturation, or both? When figuring out the colors, it's important that you do not color pick from the master artwork. You should try to match the colors by eye. You don't have to match them perfectly, just get close enough. If you realize that the color you chose for the study is not the color you see in the master artwork, then ask yourself, okay, why is my color not matching? Is it not light enough? Is it not dark enough? Is it too warm? Like that. It's almost like solving a color equation, and each step you take brings you closer to the answer. The most important skill you are getting in a swatch study is how you move on the color picker. The way your hand moves as you switch from color to color becomes instinctive after a while. However, if judging colors by eye is difficult, you can still choose the color you think is right and then use the color picker to see if you are close enough or not. If the color you chose is not close enough, then go back to it and figure out why. asking yourself if it's a problem with the value or temperature or both. One thing I also want to point out as an overall change is the change in local color, specifically the distribution of the variety of local colors. If we look at the lower half of the image, there are lots of different colored flowers. We have purples, yellows, pinks, oranges, and blues. But if we look at the top half, it's mainly greens and barely has any changes in local color. This is another overall change. More local color down here and less local color up here. With the difference in local color, our attention as the viewer is drawn down here, since it's more colorful and interesting and vibrant. And this is where our attention is meant to be drawn, because we have our focal point here with the interaction between the two main characters in the film. And now, back to our study. The awesome thing about this kind of study is that you can stop whenever you want to. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even an hour. No matter how much time you spend on it, you will definitely gain something from having to analyze the color relationships in the master artwork and trying to replicate them in your color swatch study. Even if you only have time to study the overall changes and none of the specific ones. And I want to say that using this method of study has definitely improved my color choices over time. Now when I want to do an illustration, I try to study art that has a similar color design to what I envision for my painting. For example, if I want to do a painting set in a forest or underwater, I will study art set in those environments so I can better understand the color relationships and the subtle color transitions. Once I understand that, it becomes easier for me to design the color in my painting in any way I want, since I now have some knowledge to base my choices on. Another thing I love about color swatch studies is that it's extremely relaxing and just fun to do, since there's no pressure to make a pretty painting. From the beginning, you decide that you will only paint blocks of color, and that limitation makes studying color much less overwhelming. If you can manage to do even a 15-minute swatch study every day, your color decisions will definitely change for the better. This color swatch study in particular took me around an hour to complete. And with that said, we have come to the end of this Studio Ghibli color swatch study. I hope you can see that you can study color from absolutely any master artwork by simplifying the color down to its basic relationships. If you like this video, be sure to check this one out too. And let me know in the comments if you have any ideas or suggestions for future videos. Thanks for watching and happy creating.